Mocking the human was easy, until the apex hunters refused to engage the planet Talion 7, stretched endlessly under a crimson sky. Jagged mountains cast long shadows over barren plains, and sharp winds carried fine dust that could strip paint from metal in hours. For most species, this world was inhospitable, a place to be avoided. For humans, it was a challenge. For Captain Alina Reyes and her team, it was home, at least for now. Reyes adjusted the straps of her survival pack and squinted into the horizon. She could see the distant outline of the research outpost, a cluster of domes and towers built from recycled materials scavenged from earlier expeditions. Inside, her team was busy cataloging the strange flora and fauna, always careful not to underestimate anything. Talion 7 was a harsh teacher. Every step outside the protective walls could be dangerous. High above, in orbit, a different audience observed the humans. They were the apex hunters, a guild of aliens celebrated across the galaxy for their unmatched skill in combat and survival. Their craft hovered silently, sleek and dark against the red sky. Aboard, the leaders watched the humans like one would watch ants fumbling over obstacles. "Pathetic," one of them hissed, his voice like grinding stone. "They call this exploration. They don't even understand how to protect themselves," another replied, amusement dripping from every word. "Watch them. This will be entertaining." The apex hunters had seen thousands of species across countless worlds. Most failed quickly. Humans, in their view, were weak, slow, and fragile. Watching them struggle in a planet that would crush almost any other life form promised amusement. They didn't need to intervene. Back on the surface, the humans were struggling. Reyes watched as Lieutenant Soren tried to coax a giant, gelatinous creature out of a shallow crevice with nothing more than a tangle of ropes and a makeshift flare. The creature, sensing danger, quivered and split into smaller forms, scattering across the rocks. Soren cursed under his breath, wiping sweat and grime from his face. "Keep your eyes on it," Reyes said calmly, though her heart raced. "We've handled worse." Sergeant Tila, the team's engineer, laughed softly. "Worse? Have you forgotten the acid storms last week? Or the quake that swallowed half our equipment? We survived," Reyes said with a small smile. "We adapt, that's what counts." While the humans worked, the apex hunters' amusement grew. In their private communications, they played clips of the humans' mistakes, sharing them across their networks. Every slip, every miscalculation, every moment of struggle became a source of ridicule. "Look at them stumble over rocks like newborns," one said. "Pathetic." The humans were unaware of this scrutiny. Their focus was survival, and survival required attention to detail. Every plant, every insect, every gust of wind could mean the difference between life and death. They improvised constantly, using whatever resources Talion 7 offered. Tila had fashioned a water filter from hollowed rocks and tough vines. Soren had built traps from scrap metal to catch small creatures for food. Every success, though small, boosted morale. One day, a new threat arrived. Sensors picked up a predator unlike any they had seen before. Massive, armored, with limbs that could crush a human in a single swipe. Reyes studied the readings with concern. This creature was fast, intelligent, and dangerous. The humans knew they needed to prepare. Traps were laid, escape routes mapped, and observation posts established. Despite the danger, there was a quiet excitement. Every challenge was an opportunity to learn, to prove that humans could survive where others might fail. High above, the apex hunters received reports about the predator. Their response was immediate and dismissive. "Do they really expect us to engage?" one asked, his tone laced with disdain. "A primitive species like this cannot handle it. Let them struggle, let them fail. Watching will be more amusing than interfering." "They might survive," another said cautiously, "but only by chance. They will not last." Reyes and her team had no idea they were being watched or mocked. They worked in silence, focusing on observation. They studied the predator's patterns, noting how it moved and hunted. They saw weaknesses in its armor and slow reactions to environmental changes. Slowly, methodically, they built strategies. The humans' first encounter was tense. The predator lunged unexpectedly, smashing through a trap designed by Soren. Dust and debris filled the air as the team scrambled. Tila's heart pounded as she recalculated the placement of nets and barriers. Reyes remained calm, issuing orders with precise clarity. "Fall back to the ridge," she commanded. "Lead it into the trap line. Do not engage directly." It was a test of patience and planning. The humans drew the predator toward an area they had modified with hidden pitfalls and weighted nets. Step by step, they controlled the battlefield. The predator, powerful but unaccustomed to the humans' tactics, fell into the trap. When the dust settled, the humans cheered softly, exhausted but victorious. They had survived where almost any other species would have failed. They had not relied on strength alone, but on careful observation, ingenuity, and teamwork. Back in orbit, the apex hunters watched in disbelief. The humans had survived, yes, but in a way the aliens had never anticipated. One hunter muttered, They think differently." "This is unexpected," another laughed nervously. "Unexpected does not mean dangerous. They are still primitive. Survival here is a fluke." Yet, even as they dismissed the humans outwardly, a seed of unease began to grow. These creatures did not behave like other weak species. They adapted, they improvised, they learned from mistakes instead of repeating them, and most unnerving of all, they survived. Days passed. The humans continued to navigate the harsh environment of Talion 7, constantly under threat from the planet itself and its predators. Each day brought new challenges: sudden acid rains, seismic tremors, and aggressive wildlife. But with every threat, the humans grew more adept. They built shelters that withstood the worst storms, devised warning systems to anticipate predators, and learned to use the landscape itself as a weapon. In one particularly daring maneuver, the humans lured a pack of small, vicious predators into a canyon lined with natural traps. Rocks and vines were arranged to collapse in precise sequences, guiding the predators into containment pits. The humans observed from a safe distance, hearts racing as their plan unfolded perfectly. It was a dangerous gamble, but one they had planned meticulously. Watching from orbit, the apex hunters could not hide their surprise. "How?" one whispered. "How are they doing this?" "They are unpredictable," another admitted, the word tasting bitter. "We cannot read them like other species. They are different." Despite this growing awareness, the hunters refused to engage. For them, direct contact was unnecessary. The humans were entertaining, but still beneath consideration. The hunters had made a habit of mocking, of looking down on others, and they were not about to abandon it. On Talion 7, Captain Reyes paused at the edge of a cliff, looking out over the crimson plains. She felt the wind whip against her face, carrying the scent of dust and danger. Her team was tired, bruised, but alive. They had faced the unknown and survived. She knew the predators were not the greatest threat they would face. The real challenge was not just survival. It was proving that humanity could endure, adapt, and thrive where others would falter. As the sun dipped below the jagged horizon, casting long shadows across the planet, Reyes allowed herself a brief smile. They had survived another day. Against all odds, they had turned weakness into strength and uncertainty into advantage. Somewhere above, unseen and arrogant, the apex hunters continued to watch. They mocked, they laughed, they assumed superiority. But the humans of Talion 7 were changing the game, showing that survival was about more than strength. It was about intelligence, courage, and the relentless drive to overcome. And in that quiet moment, Captain Reyes understood something fundamental. The humans were not just surviving. They were evolving. They were learning. And one day, the apex hunters would see just how dangerous that could be. The stars above Talion 7 twinkled coldly, indifferent to the struggles below. Yet in the crimson light, humans moved with purpose, carving a future from a world that had meant only hardship. Every step was a statement, every victory a declaration. Underestimating humanity had always been a mistake. The humans of Talion 7 had begun to understand the rhythm of the planet. Every gust of wind, every tremor, and every flicker of movement in the red dust carried meaning. Captain Alina Reyes had taught them to watch, to listen, to anticipate. Survival was no longer just about brute force. It was about intelligence, observation, and patience. Yet the most dangerous force they faced was not the harsh terrain, nor the predators that lurked in shadows. It was the arrogance of the apex hunters, still observing from orbit. The humans had no idea they were being scrutinized, mocked, and underestimated. Their triumph over the first predator had earned them quiet amusement in the guild, but even the hunters were beginning to notice patterns that did not fit their expectations. Lieutenant Soren knelt beside a shallow pool, testing the water's acidity. The surface shimmered faintly under the crimson sky, and tiny, almost transparent creatures scuttled along the edge. He carefully collected a sample, adding notes to his datapad. "This water is more corrosive than last week," he said, frowning. "If it rains again, it will eat through metal faster than our shelters can hold up." Sergeant Tila, crouched nearby, examined a cluster of strange, spiky plants. "These can be used as deterrents," she said. "Set them along the trap lines, predators won't go near them. And the thorns can cut through their hide if they push too far." Reyes nodded, her eyes scanning the horizon. "Good, every advantage counts. We cannot fight them head-on, but we can make the battlefield work for us." She glanced toward the distant ridges where shadows were beginning to stretch. "And we must remain alert. The apex hunters may watch, but this world is still theirs to challenge." The humans spent the day improving their defenses, using ingenuity rather than force. They reinforced their shelters with makeshift reinforcements, creating angled walls to redirect falling rocks from the frequent tremors. They built alarm systems from scraps, simple mechanisms that rattled and whistled when disturbed, giving early warning of approaching predators. As the sun dipped lower, the sky shifting from crimson to deep violet, a distant roar echoed across the plains. The humans froze. The predator they had encountered earlier, far larger and more dangerous than the average creature on Talion 7, was returning. Its heavy footsteps shook the ground, each movement deliberate and measured. "Ready the traps," Reyes commanded. Her voice was calm, but her mind raced through scenarios. "We do not engage directly, lead it where we want it, use its strength against it." Soren and Tila moved swiftly, checking trap lines and adjusting snares. The predator came into view, a massive creature with layered armor and jagged claws. Its eyes, bright and intelligent, scanned the terrain as if aware of every movement. The humans held their ground, silent and focused. When the predator lunged toward a false trail, the humans executed their plan. A series of weighted nets and hidden pitfalls triggered in sequence. The predator crashed into one trap after another, each maneuver slowing it down and confusing it. Despite its strength, it could not overcome the humans' preparation. Above, the apex hunters were watching with a mixture of amusement and unease. "They are learning fast," one murmured. "Faster than I anticipated." "They survive because they are clever," another replied. "But it is not skill, it is luck." Yet even as they dismissed it, the truth gnawed at them. Humans were adapting in ways that did not fit the pattern of other weak species. They were unpredictable, inventive, and surprisingly patient. Each day they survived, the apex hunters' confidence eroded slightly. The predator, finally ensnared in the last trap, thrashed violently, but the humans did not panic. They maintained a careful distance, observing its reactions and making minor adjustments to secure the nets. Eventually, exhausted and restrained, the creature lay still. Reyes allowed herself a quiet smile. "Another day survived," she said. Her team nodded, relief mixed with exhilaration. They had faced the planet's dangers and prevailed, not by matching strength with strength, but by outthinking them. Over the following days, the humans continued to adapt. They learned to read the planet like a living map, anticipating weather patterns, predator movements, and the subtle signals that warned of danger. They created devices that amplified sound, allowing them to detect approaching creatures before sight alone could. They refined traps to be more efficient, combining mechanics and natural elements to ensure maximum effect with minimal risk. One evening, as the twin moons rose over Talion 7, the humans gathered around a small fire inside their reinforced shelter. The warmth was welcome in the planet's frigid nights. Reyes addressed her team, her voice steady and strong. "We are making progress," she said. "Each challenge we face teaches us something new. We have survived where others would fail, not because we are stronger, but because we are smarter. Keep your minds sharp and your senses sharper. Every day is a lesson." Outside, the predators prowled silently, but the humans were ready. Every movement was calculated, every response planned. They were no longer passive victims of Talion 7. They were active participants, shaping the environment and turning threats into opportunities. The apex hunters, meanwhile, began to grow restless. Reports of human successes reached other members of their guild, sparking debates among the ranks. Some hunters wanted to descend to the surface, confident that they could crush the humans in moments. Others hesitated, unsettled by the humans' ingenuity. "They survive by thinking differently," one hunter said, his tone tight with frustration. It is unsettling. They do not follow the expected patterns. Every time I anticipate their actions, they do something I cannot predict. They are weak still, another insisted. We should engage and end this farce. It is beneath us to merely watch. Yet the hesitation lingered. There was a quiet fear, unspoken but palpable. Humans did not play by the rules of other species. Their ingenuity, adaptability, and stubborn survival instincts made them unpredictable, and that unpredictability was dangerous. Back on Talion 7, the humans continued to thrive. They used the planet's harsh conditions to their advantage, turning environmental hazards into tools. Acidic pools became barriers, jagged cliffs became traps, and sudden sandstorms provided cover for maneuvering against predators. Every success reinforced the lesson that the human mind could compensate for physical weakness. In one daring encounter, a group of humans lured a small pack of predators into a canyon they had modified. Rocks, vines, and weighted branches were arranged to create a cascading trap. The predators entered, unaware of the dangers, and were funneled into containment pits. From above, the humans watched silently, their hearts pounding with tension. The predators struggled, but the humans' careful planning ensured none escaped. As the last predator fell silent, Reyes exhaled. She knew this victory was more than just survival, it was a statement. Humans were capable of confronting the impossible and emerging intact, not through brute strength, but through intelligence and teamwork. The apex hunters observed the event in orbit. For the first time, there was silence among them. No laughter, no mocking commentary. Only watchful attention and growing unease. They are adapting, one hunter said quietly. Every time we think we understand them, they surprise us. This is remarkable. Remarkable. The word hung in the air, tinged with unease. The humans' success had shattered assumptions. The hunters had expected simple, predictable behavior, but what they witnessed was creativity, persistence, and an ability to learn in real time. Despite the unease, the apex hunters refused to descend. Engaging humans directly was unnecessary. They were entertaining enough from afar. Yet secretly, a plan began to form in the minds of a few cautious hunters. They would wait, observe, and see how far humanity could go. The unpredictability of humans was both fascinating and dangerous. On the surface, the humans were unaware of the observation. They continued their work, improving their shelters, refining traps, and expanding their understanding of Talion 7 ecosystem. Each day brought new dangers, sudden earthquakes, aggressive native species, and unexpected weather changes. Each day they adapted and survived. Reyes often stood at the highest ridge looking over the plains. The setting sun cast long shadows, and the wind carried the scent of dust and life. She knew they had survived another day, but she also knew that survival was only the beginning. Humans had to learn, adapt, and grow stronger, not just to survive, but to prove that they were more than just a primitive species struggling on an alien world. The night came quietly, bringing cold air and silence. The humans huddled in their shelters, exhausted but alive. Outside, predators prowled, their movements carefully tracked by hidden sensors. Every human on Talion 7 was alert, every sense engaged. The apex hunters continued to watch, silent and curious, unable to predict what would happen next. Reyes closed her eyes for a moment, thinking about the journey so far. Humanity had faced countless challenges, and each time they had adapted and survived. On Talion 7, they were learning faster, thinking smarter, and proving that weakness was not a limitation. It was an opportunity. And above them, unseen, the apex hunters began to realize that mocking humanity had been premature. Humans were more than mere survivors. They were innovators, thinkers, and challengers. Their ingenuity was not a fluke. It was a force that could not be ignored. As the twin moons rose over Talion 7, casting pale light across jagged plains and hidden traps, the humans rested. They were tired, bruised, and tested, but they were alive. And in their quiet, determined way, they were beginning to show the galaxy that underestimating humanity was a mistake. The stars above Talion 7 were indifferent to life below, but in the quiet of the night, humans dreamed of tomorrow. They would continue to survive, to adapt, and to grow stronger. Every challenge was a lesson, every predator a test, and every day a step toward proving that humanity belonged among the stars, not as prey but as equals. The apex hunters, high above in orbit, could only watch and wonder. How far could these humans go? How clever could they become? And when the time came for direct engagement, would the hunters be prepared for the unexpected? The answers would come in time. But for now, humans were winning, not through strength, but through the relentless power of the mind. The news of humanity's survival on Talion 7 had begun to spread beyond the outpost, carried by faint transmissions and intercepted communications. Across the galaxy, species that had once considered humans weak and insignificant now murmured their surprise. Yet none were as intrigued or unsettled as the apex hunters. Captain Alina Reyes stood at the edge of a plateau, the wind whipping dust into the air. Below her, the team moved with practiced precision, setting traps and preparing observation points. Every day was a learning experience. Talion 7 was unforgiving, but humans had discovered a way to turn its dangers into tools. "Another report from orbit," Lieutenant Soren said, holding up a small communication device. "The hunters are talking about us again. Seems they're curious." Reyes didn't smile. Curiosity from the apex hunters was never innocent. Curious is just another word for planning. "Stay focused. We can't afford distractions, not even from them." The humans had no illusions about the danger the hunters represented. Though they had not descended to the planet, their presence in orbit meant observation, and observation meant evaluation. The apex hunters were known for engaging only when necessary, and their necessary engagements were deadly. Yet the humans refused to be passive. Instead of avoiding predators, they began studying them more closely. Every movement, every sound, every reaction became part of a larger understanding. They mapped territories, noted hunting behaviors, and learned to predict attacks before they occurred. One morning, a violent tremor shook the plateau. Rocks tumbled, and a group of smaller predators scattered in panic. The humans had anticipated this. They used the tremor to their advantage, drawing the predators into channels lined with traps. Weighted branches fell, nets ensnared limbs, and the humans observed from safe vantage points. Their patience and planning paid off once again. Watching from above, the apex hunters could not hide their unease. "They are too precise," one whispered. "Every action is calculated. Every trap works exactly as intended." "They are still weak," another replied, though his voice lacked conviction. "It is just skillful improvisation. They cannot last forever against true predators." But even as they spoke, the humans were proving otherwise. Over the following days, they refined their methods. They combined mechanical traps with natural terrain advantages, created early warning systems using simple but effective sensors, and coordinated their team movements with signals that predators could not detect. Captain Reyes noticed something crucial. Their intelligence gave them an edge no other species had. Physical power could be countered, technology could fail, but adaptability and creativity were forces no predator or alien could easily overcome. One afternoon, Soren stumbled upon a particularly aggressive creature, one whose armored hide seemed impervious to conventional traps. He froze, realizing that brute force would not win this encounter. Instead, he observed, noted its movements, and devised a plan using environmental hazards rather than direct confrontation. Reyes arrived just as he finished setting the improvised trap. Together, they guided the creature toward a narrow canyon. Rocks and weighted vines were arranged to collapse and funnel the predator into a confined area. The plan worked perfectly. The creature, strong and swift, had no way to escape, and the humans observed its capture with quiet satisfaction. "This is the difference," Reyes said to her team later. "We survive not because we are the strongest, but because we are unpredictable. We think, we plan, we adapt." Meanwhile, the apex hunters convened in orbit. Their arrogance had begun to falter, replaced with caution. Some suggested descending to confront the humans directly, to prove superiority once and for all. Others argued against it, unsettled by the humans' ingenuity. "They adapt too quickly," one cautious hunter argued. "Every time we anticipate their moves, they defy expectation." "They are learning faster than anticipated." "Learning is irrelevant," another insisted. "We can crush them if we wish, but do we need to waste time?" The council debated, their usual certainty shaken. Humans were supposed to be predictable, weak, and easily defeated. These humans on Talion 7 were none of those things. Their adaptability made them dangerous in a way that no other weak species had ever been. On Talion 7, the humans continued to explore. They discovered underground caves that sheltered rare resources, constructed observation posts to study predator behavior, and even began experimenting with simple communication signals to coordinate across distances. Each step forward increased their confidence and their mastery over the planet's dangers. One evening, as the twin moons rose, a massive predator approached. Its size dwarfed anything the humans had previously encountered, and its claws could crush boulders. Yet the humans were not afraid. Using every observation and tactic at their disposal, they led the predator through a series of traps and diversions. Weighted nets fell from cliffs, spiked plants slowed its advance, and trenches funneled it into a pit they had prepared in advance. The predator struggled, but the humans' careful preparation allowed them to contain it without injury. They had survived where most species would have been destroyed. Above them, the apex hunters were watching intently. Their amusement had vanished, replaced with an unspoken fear. One hunter, voice tight with tension, said, "They think differently. We cannot predict them as we would others. Every trap, every tactic, every reaction, they see the world in ways we cannot understand." Another hunter's voice was colder. "They are still weak, but their ingenuity, it is dangerous. We cannot dismiss it forever." Back on Talion 7, Reyes gathered her team. "We are learning," she said. "We are stronger than we know, not in muscle, but in mind, and that is our greatest weapon." The humans began to prepare for even more extreme scenarios. They mapped out escape routes, created redundant traps, and studied the behaviors of multiple predator species simultaneously. Their understanding of the planet became comprehensive, almost instinctual. Where others might see chaos, they saw patterns. Where others might see danger, they saw opportunity. Then a new challenge arrived. A transmission, faint and fragmented, reached the humans' communication array. It carried a warning from a distant outpost. Other alien species had noticed humanity's survival. Curiosity and concern were spreading. The humans realized they were no longer isolated. Their actions had consequences far beyond Talion 7. Reyes stood silently as she considered the implications. "We have been careful," she said. "But now others may come to test us. Not predators, not storms, but intelligent beings. We must be ready." The humans continued their training and preparation, using every day to learn, to refine, and to adapt. They were no longer just survivors. They were becoming strategists, engineers, and thinkers, able to manipulate their environment and turn threats into advantages. Above, the apex hunters debated what to do next. They were powerful, trained, and feared across the galaxy. Yet even their confidence had limits. These humans were unusual, adaptable, unpredictable, dangerous in a way that no other primitive species had ever been. "They will continue to surprise us," one hunter admitted reluctantly. "And when they do, we may not be able to respond as we always have." The humans, unaware of the full extent of their observers' concern, moved through the red plains with quiet determination. Every action was deliberate, every movement calculated. They were proving that intelligence, creativity, and perseverance could overcome raw strength and assumed superiority. One night, as the moons cast silver light over Talion 7, the humans gathered around a fire. Tila had constructed a crude sensor array that emitted quiet beeps when predators approached. Soren shared observations of predator patterns, and Reyes considered the next steps in their survival plan. "We have survived predators," Reyes said. "We have survived the planet. But soon we may face a new challenge, species that are stronger than we are who think we are weak. We cannot fight them with strength alone. We must be smarter, faster, more inventive. That is how we survive." The humans listened, understanding that their fight was far from over. Their victories on Talion 7 were only the beginning. Survival here had taught them lessons that could not be learned elsewhere. Each day was a test of creativity, observation, and adaptability. Each challenge strengthened them in ways that raw power never could. Above, the apex hunters continued to observe. They had begun to recognize a pattern they could not easily dismiss. Humans were resilient. Humans were clever. And most importantly, humans were unpredictable. The Council of Hunters debated quietly, tension thick in the room. "They are evolving," one whispered, "not physically but mentally, and that is dangerous." "Do we engage?" another asked. "We can end this easily." "Not yet," the first replied. "Let them continue, observe. Their methods, their ingenuity, it is remarkable." The humans, far below, did not know they were being studied. their cleverness and determination becoming a subject of awe and concern for a species that considered themselves untouchable. Reyes and her team trained tirelessly, refined their strategies, and strengthened their defenses. They were no longer just surviving. They were learning to dominate their environment through intelligence, observation, and teamwork. They were proving that underestimating humanity was a mistake, and that strength alone was never enough to measure power. As the red dust settled on Talion 7 and the night stretched cold and quiet, the humans looked toward the future. They knew their survival had drawn attention. They knew other species might come to challenge them. But they were ready, not just to survive, but to outthink, outmaneuver, and outlast anyone who doubted them. The apex hunters, watching silently from orbit, could only wonder how far humans could go. The creatures they had mocked as weak were proving to be anything but. And in their arrogance, the hunters had begun to realize that intelligence, adaptability, and courage could rival, if not surpass, raw strength and experience. For Captain Reyes and her team, the lesson was simple: think differently, act deliberately, and never underestimate the power of the human mind. The challenges ahead would be greater, but so too was humanity's potential. Talion 7 had tested them, and humanity had passed. But the galaxy was watching, and the apex hunters had begun to learn a difficult truth. Underestimating humans was a risk no one could afford. The day the apex hunters descended to Talion 7, the humans did not panic. They were prepared, as always. Captain Alina Reyes had anticipated this moment for weeks. The signs had been subtle: shifts in sensor readings, unusual orbital maneuvers, and faint signals that suggested something massive had entered the planet's upper atmosphere. Reyes gathered her team. "They're coming down," she said. "This is what we've prepared for. Remember, we do not fight directly. We let the environment and our traps do the work. Every move must be calculated." Lieutenant Soren checked the lines of tripwires and weighted nets they had set up across the valleys. "All clear," he said, tightening knots and adjusting triggers. "If they come, they'll be surprised by what we've prepared." Sergeant Tila inspected their improvised sensor network. Small devices hidden in rocks and under vegetation would alert them to movement, even before the hunters reached the ground. "They may have technology," she said, "but they can't predict what we've done here." The apex hunters' ships glided through the thin atmosphere, powerful engines kicking up clouds of dust and debris. They were enormous, sleek, and intimidating, a stark contrast to the humans' modest outpost. The hunters were confident. They had never feared any species, yet as they approached, they could sense an unfamiliar tension. The humans had prepared. When the first hunter stepped onto the planet's surface, it did so with measured caution. Its eyes scanned the terrain, taking in the sharp cliffs, jagged rocks, and the seemingly small humans who moved with quiet determination. The apex hunters expected panic, chaos, and weakness. Instead, they found a team calm, alert, and precise. Captain Reyes observed from the ridge. "Do not engage unless necessary," she instructed. "Let them underestimate us. Let them think this is easy." The humans moved in coordinated patterns, invisible until the moment of effect. Weighted nets were nearly invisible against the red dust. Pitfalls were camouflaged with natural materials. Traps had been designed to use the environment against intruders. The apex hunters, despite their advanced sensors and experience, were momentarily slowed by the unpredictability of the terrain. One hunter moved forward confidently, expecting an easy demonstration of superiority. As it stepped onto the first false path, the ground gave slightly beneath its weight. A rock slab shifted, triggering a net above that tangled one of its limbs. The hunter struggled, recalibrating its movements as more traps triggered in sequence. Each attempt to advance brought new obstacles. From above, the other hunters observed, some amused, some concerned. "They are clever," one murmured, "but they cannot stop us all." "They may survive," another admitted reluctantly, "but not with all of us engaged. They will falter eventually." Yet even as they said it, the humans continued to demonstrate ingenuity. They did not attack the hunters directly. They observed, adapted, and allowed the environment to amplify their strategies. When a hunter tried to leap over a pitfall, another trap, a simple weighted log swinging from a cliff, intercepted its path, forcing it back. The hunters realized that physical skill alone could not overcome the humans' preparation. Captain Reyes moved her team silently through observation points, signaling adjustments with subtle gestures. Every human on Talion 7 knew their role. Misstep, hesitation, or error could be costly, yet their training and preparation ensured coordination. The planet itself had become a weapon in human hands. Hours passed, and the hunters began to recognize a pattern. The humans were not weak. They were strategic. They were unpredictable. Every attempt to force engagement ended in frustration. The humans were not fighting, they were controlling. One hunter paused, observing a trap they had failed to anticipate. "They think differently," it said quietly. "Every trap is not just a physical obstacle, it is a lesson. They are learning faster than we can predict." "They are still small, fragile," another countered. "We should crush them to remind them of their place." But even that confidence wavered as the humans continued to anticipate and counter every movement. For the first time, the apex hunters felt a sense of unease. They were not facing merely survival. They were facing intelligence, creativity, and adaptation on a level that challenged their experience. Reyes observed a large hunter attempting to flank the humans from a narrow canyon. She signaled to Soren, who adjusted a series of weighted rocks. A controlled landslide blocked the path, forcing the hunter to retreat. Another team member triggered a series of hidden alarms, masking their movements and keeping them invisible. The hunters tried to advance again, but each step was met with subtle resistance. Traps, terrain advantages, and quick adjustments prevented direct engagement. The humans had turned Talion 7 into a complex chessboard where every move was anticipated and every response accounted for. One of the apex hunters, more cautious than the others, called for a pause. "This is frustrating. They are not what we expected." "They are weak," another insisted, though their voice betrayed hesitation. "We only need to press harder. Eventually they will fail." But the day wore on, and the humans showed no signs of faltering. They adapted faster than the hunters could anticipate, adjusting trap sequences, modifying defensive lines, and exploiting environmental advantages in real time. The humans' coordination and ingenuity created a paradox. They appeared small and weak, yet their strategies were vast, intricate, and unyielding. As night fell, the humans lit small, controlled fires and used them as signaling devices. They moved silently through the shadows, rearranging traps and observation points. Each hunter step triggered subtle changes in the environment, but the humans' foresight allowed them to remain one step ahead. The hunters realized something alarming. No matter how skilled they were individually or how advanced their technology, they could not directly confront the humans without risk. The humans did not fight with fists or weapons. They fought with minds, environment, and strategy. The apex hunters, trained to dominate and intimidate, found themselves unable to engage effectively. Captain Reyes gathered her team at a high vantage point, overlooking the valley where the hunters had attempted to advance. "They are learning," she said, calm but determined. "They are adapting to our moves, but so are we. We control the battlefield, not them. Remember, observation, patience, and adaptation, that is our strength." The humans prepared for the final challenge of the day. A massive predator, attracted by the noise of the intruding hunters, had entered the valley. The humans had studied this creature for weeks and understood its behavior. They did not fear it. They had created a trap that combined terrain manipulation, weighted barriers, and environmental cues. As the predator approached, the humans executed their plan flawlessly. It fell into a series of pitfalls, narrowly avoiding the hunters, who had no way to interfere without risk. The humans observed from a safe distance, adjusting minor details and ensuring control over the situation. The apex hunters were forced to witness the humans' success, unable to intervene without endangering themselves. They were learning an uncomfortable truth: these humans were not prey. They were strategists, thinkers, and adaptable beings capable of mastering challenges far beyond their size or physical strength. One of the hunters, the youngest and least experienced, whispered, "I thought we would crush them easily. I thought this would be amusing. But they are more than I expected. I don't understand how they do it." "They adapt differently," a senior hunter replied. "Every trap, every adjustment, every movement, they anticipate and react in ways no other species has. They are dangerous in ways we cannot measure yet." Reyes watched the hunters retreat slightly, assessing the situation. She knew this was only the beginning. The humans had survived the first contact, controlled the battlefield, and forced the hunters to acknowledge their ingenuity. Yet the galaxy was watching. Other species would take notice. Challenges would increase. But humanity had proven a fundamental truth. Intelligence, observation, and adaptability could overcome strength, size, and assumed superiority. The night on Talion 7 was quiet, the red plains glowing softly under twin moons. The humans regrouped, exhausted but elated. They had faced the apex hunters, first attempt at engagement, and they had prevailed without direct conflict. Their strategies had worked. Their minds had won where force could not. Reyes addressed her team, her voice steady. Today we proved something important, not just to ourselves but to anyone watching. We do not have to fight like others. We do not have to rely on strength alone. We think differently, we act differently, and that makes us formidable. Never forget that. Today, Talion 7 belongs to us. The humans understood the weight of that statement. They had faced superior beings, predators, and an alien world itself, and they had turned every threat into an opportunity. Talion 7 had taught them lessons that no battlefield, no simulation, and no alien observer could have prepared them for. Above, the apex hunters convened in orbit. Their discussions were tense, their usual arrogance tempered with unease. "They survived our first engagement," one admitted reluctantly, "and they did it without a single weapon aimed at us. They used strategy, observation, and adaptation. This is unexpected." "Do we underestimate them?" another asked, voice tight. "They are still small, fragile," a third replied. "But if they continue to adapt, if they continue to survive, we may need to rethink everything we know about them. They are different, and that is dangerous." Below, on Talion 7, the humans rested under the glow of twin moons, unaware of the full extent of the apex hunters' concern. They had survived, they had controlled the battlefield, and they had proven that underestimating humans was a mistake. And in their quiet determination, they were preparing for challenges that no one, not even the apex hunters, could predict. The humans had survived the apex hunters' first engagement. Talion 7, harsh and unyielding, had become a proving ground. Captain Alina Reyes knew that the galaxy was watching, and that respect had to be earned not through fear, but through demonstration. The humans were ready, not just to survive, but to show that intelligence, adaptability, and teamwork could surpass even the most powerful predators or alien adversaries. The morning sun broke over the jagged horizon, casting crimson light across the plains. The humans moved with quiet precision, reinforcing traps and checking observation points. Every detail mattered. Every small adjustment could mean the difference between life and death. The apex hunters had returned to orbit, their curiosity sharpened and their arrogance shaken. Today they would learn that humanity was not to be dismissed. "Keep calm," Reyes told her team. "We do not attack unless necessary. Observation is our advantage. Let them come to us and we control every step." The humans spread across the plateau, maintaining visual contact with each other. Signals and subtle gestures ensured perfect coordination. Lieutenant Soren checked the tripwires, adjusting tension and alignment. Sergeant Tila reviewed the sensor array, ensuring every movement on the ground would be detected before it became a threat. Every element was precise, every detail intentional. The apex hunters descended once again. Their ships touched the ground with controlled grace, lifting clouds of red dust that settled like a storm across the valley. They moved confidently, expecting intimidation to cause panic, expecting humans to flee. Instead, they found calm observation and quiet preparation. One hunter stepped forward, testing the humans' response. The ground beneath it triggered a series of small traps, subtle enough to slow movement without harming. Weighted branches fell from the cliffs, nudging it back slightly, while hidden nets shifted positions. The hunter paused, momentarily confused. Its advanced sensors struggled to interpret what was happening. From a distance, Reyes signaled her team. "Let it proceed," she whispered. "Observe and adapt, control the battlefield." The humans allowed the hunter to move further, drawing it into the valley where the most complex trap lines awaited. Pitfalls, weighted stones, spiked plants, and narrow channels were arranged to channel movement exactly as intended. The hunter attempted to flank, but the terrain shifted subtly with each step, forcing recalibration. One of the apex hunters' younger members muttered, "They are controlling us. This is unusual." "They are clever," a senior hunter admitted reluctantly. "We cannot predict them like other species. Every move, every reaction, they anticipate differently." The humans did not attack directly. They had no need. Every element of the environment was a weapon in their hands. The hunters were frustrated as their every maneuver was countered by unseen obstacles. Each step forward required caution, observation, and adaptation, skills that humans had honed over weeks of survival. Suddenly, a massive predator drawn by the activity in the valley emerged from the shadows. Its claws were enormous, its armored hide glinting under the rising sun. The apex hunters had not accounted for it. A moment of hesitation rippled through their ranks. Captain Reyes remained calm. "Use the environment," she instructed. "Lead it where it belongs. Let's show them what humans can do together." The humans executed a complex plan. Weighted nets and pitfalls channeled the predator toward a narrow canyon. Triggers set by Tila caused rocks to fall, guiding the massive creature precisely where the humans intended. The apex hunters were forced to retreat, observing as humans directed the predator without using weapons or direct attacks. The predator fell into a containment pit, struggling against the ingenious system of traps. The humans had achieved what the hunters could not: control without confrontation. They had turned raw danger into a lesson in adaptability, ingenuity, and teamwork. The apex hunters observed in stunned silence. Their previous arrogance had vanished, replaced with something unfamiliar: respect. One elder hunter finally spoke, voice tight with reluctant admiration. "They are remarkable. They do not fight like any species we know. They adapt, they anticipate, and they overcome. This is intelligence at its finest." "They are weak," another replied cautiously. "Still small, fragile, yet their methods are effective." "Yes," the elder admitted, "and that is what makes them dangerous. We cannot predict them. We cannot intimidate them. They are different." On the ground, Reyes gathered her team at a high vantage point overlooking the valley. "They are learning," she said quietly. "Not just us, but themselves. Every challenge teaches us something new. We do not need to fight like others. We think differently, we act differently, and that is our strength." The humans spent the day reinforcing their positions, observing the hunters, and preparing for future encounters. They moved with confidence, no longer just surviving, they were mastering Talion 7. Their traps, tactics, and strategies had turned the planet itself into an ally, amplifying their intelligence and teamwork. Above, the apex hunters convened again. Debate was tense. Some urged immediate engagement, believing their superiority would prevail. Others, more cautious, recognized that direct action might backfire. "We cannot underestimate them again," one hunter said. "Every time we think we have the advantage, they turn it into ours." "They are still humans," another argued. "Physical limitations remain, but their ingenuity, it is not something we can ignore. We must respect it." Reyes and her team did not wait for further provocations. They continued to adapt, improving their traps, communication, and understanding of both the planet and their observers. They anticipated the hunters' movements, refined their strategies, and created contingencies for every possibility. Then came the ultimate test. A massive storm, unique to Talion 7, rolled across the plains, accompanied by seismic tremors and gusts strong enough to topple metal structures. The apex hunters had to retreat, unable to navigate the storm without risk. The humans, prepared for this eventuality, moved through the tempest with precision. They used the environment to their advantage, guiding predators and obstacles away from their shelters and toward traps designed to neutralize danger. When the storm passed, the humans emerged unscathed, shelters intact, and predators either trapped or deterred. They had survived what might have destroyed any other species on Talion 7. The apex hunters, observing from orbit, could not hide their astonishment. "They are resilient," one hunter admitted. "Not by force, but by thought, adaptation, and planning. This is humanity." Reyes addressed her team that evening, tired but resolute. "We have proven that survival is not about strength alone. It is about observation, adaptability, and teamwork. The galaxy is watching, and we have shown them that humans cannot be underestimated." The apex hunters, finally, descended one last time, not to attack, but to acknowledge. They approached cautiously, wary of direct engagement. Reyes stepped forward, signaling calm and readiness. The humans did not threaten, but they did not cower. They stood confident, prepared, and unafraid. The elder hunter spoke first, voice carrying both respect and acknowledgement. "You have demonstrated intelligence, strategy, and resilience unlike any species we have encountered. You do not fight like others. You think differently. You survive differently, and that earns our respect." Reyes inclined her head, acknowledging the gesture. "We do not seek conflict. We seek survival, understanding, and mastery of our environment. But we will defend ourselves and we will adapt. That is how humanity thrives." The apex hunters paused, observing the humans in a way they never had before. They had mocked, underestimated, and assumed superiority. Now they recognized a fundamental truth. Humanity's strength was not in muscle or weaponry, but in creativity, intelligence, and perseverance. As the hunters departed, they left with a newfound respect. Humanity had not only survived Talion 7, they had mastered it. They had demonstrated that ingenuity, teamwork, and adaptability could overcome any assumed limitation. On the planet, Reyes and her team gathered at the highest ridge, watching the hunters' ships disappear into the sky. They were exhausted but triumphant. Talion 7 had tested them, challenged them, and forced them to adapt. They had learned that survival was not enough. They had to think, plan, and innovate. "We have come far," Soren said, looking out over the plains. "And we've shown them what humans can do." Tila smiled, exhaustion and satisfaction mixing. "They thought we were weak. They thought we would fail, but we adapted, we survived, and we thrived." Reyes nodded, eyes on the horizon. "This is only the beginning. The galaxy is watching and humanity has proven itself. We are unpredictable, intelligent, and resilient. Today we have earned respect. Tomorrow we will continue to earn it, even where others doubt us." As the twin moons rose over Talion 7, casting silver light across the red plains, the humans felt a quiet pride. They had faced predators, a harsh planet, and one of the most feared alien guilds in the galaxy, and they had prevailed. Not through brute force, not through intimidation, but through intelligence, observation, and determination. Above, distant stars twinkled coldly, indifferent to the struggles below. Yet on Talion 7, humanity had left its mark. They had proven that underestimating humans was a mistake, and that the galaxy could not ignore their ingenuity. Every challenge faced, every obstacle overcome, every predator defeated had built a foundation for the future. The humans rested that night, aware that new challenges would come, aware that the apex hunters and other species might return. But they were ready. They had survived the impossible. They had outthought the strongest. They had earned respect where it had never been given. And they knew, deep in their hearts, that humanity's journey was only beginning. Talion 7 was harsh, the galaxy vast, and the apex hunters powerful. But the humans had shown that intelligence, creativity, and resilience were forces stronger than many realized. And in that moment, under the twin moons and the endless stars, humanity stood tall, not as prey, but as equals.